By the time I realized the oven timer was still ticking behind me, Lila was already speaking in that careful voice people use when they're about to say something they know will hurt. She stood in my son's kitchen in a silk robe, the wedding dress I'd paid to have steamed hanging on the pantry door like a ghost. "Eleanor," she said, eyes on the mirror propped against the backsplash for tomorrow to go smoothly, "you really shouldn't be here." Not, please not. Could we figure something out? Just a line drawn with a lipstick smile. Daniel kept his gaze on the coffee he was grinding as though the burrs could drown out the conversation. He didn't argue with her. He didn't look at me. When the grinder stopped, he said, "It's been tense. Maybe it's best if you take a break." The oven clicked off. My mind caught on the only consequential thing in the room, the envelope on the counter with the final invoice from the florist addressed to me. I swallowed. "Where would you like me to go then?" I asked, because manners are scaffolding when everything else is collapsing. Lila examined her manicure. "A hotel your sister's anywhere, not here." She didn't sound cruel. She sounded efficient, like she was crossing an item off a list titled Fix Wedding Stress. "This is Daniel's place too," I said. Daniel cleared his throat. "Lila's been handling everything. The mortgage, the renovations, the bills. You contributed the down payment once, Mom. A while ago. $87,000 downgraded from Lifeline to Anecdote." I looked around the kitchen whose marble I had helped choose the coffee machine I'd purchased when the old one sputtered the cabinet cream paint color Lila preferred because it photographed well. The day had been full of helpful verbs, and here was the noun exile. "All right," I said. No trembling, no raised voice, just the word that opened the door to the next room in the house of my life. I went upstairs to the guest room. I was not permitted to call it mine, though I had slept there for 6 months while the master bath was being tiled and then retiled. A narrow dresser sat where my cedar chest once sat. In the house I sold, our red brick row house on Birch Street that Robert and I restored winter after winter. The check stub for Daniel's down payment still lived in a tax folder labeled Things We Did for Love. I folded clothes that did not need folding just to have something to do with my hands. Through the floor, voices rose and fell, diagramming the space I would vacate. Lila suggested a yoga nook, Daniel an office. On the nightstand sat Robert's photograph, him in a chambray shirt with plaster dust on the collar. "Well," I told him, steadying myself on the wood, "it seems I am decorative." I zipped the suitcase. The zipper moved cleanly, a relief. I took the photo out of the frame and slid it into the side pocket. Downstairs, I kept my eyes on the runner as I walked past them. Lila was adjusting the dress on its hanger, now smoothing the fabric as if she could iron the air. Daniel said, "Thanks for understanding," and I nodded because what else was there to do? I sat in my car at the curb of the house my money had leveraged into possibility. I let the air conditioning run and put my forehead to the wheel for 1 breath, maybe 2. When I lifted my head, I called the only person who would pick up on a Saturday evening and tell me the truth. Naomi Patel said, the voice I'd relied on since Robert died, always calm, always precise. "Eleanor, I need you to pull the purchase file for Daniel's place," I said. "Everything. The mortgage, the deed, the side agreements, whatever we executed 2 summers ago. I have a developing situation." She didn't ask me to explain immediately. I could hear keys tapping. "I have the digital binder open," she said after a beat. "Are you safe?" "I'm fine," I said, and summarized without embroidery Lila's request. Daniel's agreement, the word once, the word hotel. Naomi's typing got faster, and when she spoke again, her voice had that tone she uses when numbers and signatures are about to clean a mess, feelings made. "Eleanor, I want to confirm what we did then. You expressed concerns about Lila's spending. You asked me to make sure your contribution wasn't treated as a gift. We recorded your $87,000 as a loan secured against the property. You also signed as a co-borrower on the mortgage, and more paper sound the deed shows you as a 35 person. The AC hummed. A jogger thudded past the car ponytail marking time. For a long second, all I could see was a shim of sunlight on the dashboard. 35, I said. 35, she repeated. Lila never returned the acknowledgement letters I sent 3 times, but that omission doesn't undo the recorded instruments. As far as the county and the bank are concerned, you're not a benefactor. You're an owner. Something inside me changed position. It did not break. It slid where it should have been all along. "All right," I said again the second time, truer than the first. "If a co-owner wanted to liquidate, I asked how would that work." "Standard mechanisms," she said. "You can notice an intent to sell your interest. They'd have the right of first refusal. If they can't buy you out at current valuation, a partition action can force a sale with proceeds divided by ownership percentage." She paused. "Do you want me to prepare the notice?" Through the kitchen window, I could see Daniel lifting a champagne bottle, practice for tomorrow, I supposed, and Lila arranging the veil on a chair. The scene had all the trappings of joy and none of the substance. "Yes," I said. "Draft it. Date it Monday." "Understood," Naomi said. "I'll email you the packet tonight. We'll courier the notice first thing." "Thank you," I said. We hung up. I booked a room at a business hotel near the river where the halls smell faintly of lemon, and nobody asks why you're alone. Before I pulled away, I texted Daniel, "I'm stepping out for the weekend. I'll send a forwarding address for any mail. Love you." He replied with a thumbs-up bubble that hovered like a sticker over the evening. At check-in, the clerk slid me a key card. Upstairs, the room was what hotel rooms are generic mercy. I set the photo of Robert against the lamp base plugged in my phone and started a short list because lists like manners are scaffolding. Confirm courier details with Naomi. Pull bank transfer records for the down payment. Sleep. I lay back, eyes open. My mind replayed the kitchen scene not to feel it again, but to test it for weak spots. It held. What I remembered most oddly was the way Lila smoothed the dress palms down like you might soothe a skittish animal. I tried to imagine the moment she decided that a mother should be invisible on the eve of her son's wedding. I could not. I turned out the light. The room's blackout curtains made morning ambiguous. I woke to the low whir of the air unit and the green blink of the phone charging. Coffee could wait. One call could not. Riverside Conservatory Events Office, a woman answered bright but measured. "Good morning. My name is Eleanor Hart. I'm the contracting party for tomorrow's reception in the East Glass House." A pause clicking keys. "Yes, contract ending in 219. Ms. Hart, congratulations to the family. How can I assist?" "I need to cancel the reception," I said, keeping my voice even. "I'm aware of the terms and the penalties. I'm the signer, and I'll settle any fees." Another pause longer now. Paper rustled. The timbre of her voice lowered a fraction from script to human. "Ms. Hart, I'm Marisol Dunn, the day manager. To confirm, you're canceling the Sunday reception in full. We have 180 guests listed, a plated menu, string quartet, and bar package." "In full," I said. "Please note the cancellation as mine." She took me through the surgery of it, the non-refundable deposit, the guaranteed minimum, the labor already scheduled. We arrived at a number that hurt, but not more than the night before. "We'll need an email from the signatory address," she said, "and I'll send a formal cancellation acknowledgement within the hour. Please do, and send the final statement to this hotel. I'll pay today." I gave her the details, then thanked her and hung up. For a while, I sat with the quiet, letting the decision settle into the room. The city was out there, work trucks, joggers, the ferry horn. But inside, the carpet absorbed every footfall and the walls refused to echo. I showered, dressed, and took the elevator down to the lobby for coffee that tasted like obligation. At a small table by the window, I opened Naomi's email, the deed, the mortgage, the promissory note secured against the property, her cover letter. She had highlighted my name where it mattered. 35% looks like ink until you need it. Then it becomes a lever. My phone began to strobe and hum just before noon, a call from an unknown number in the same area code as Daniel's street. I answered. "This is Eleanor. You canceled our reception." Lila's voice was as sharp as glass words pressed together so none could escape uncut. "The conservatory says you canceled the entire thing." "You'll still have your ceremony," I said. "What I canceled is the part I contracted and funded." "We have people flying in," she said, air shredding through her throat. 180 guests, the quartet, the flowers, the bar. You can't just... She stopped herself, changed pronoun. "You shouldn't do this." "Should" is a flexible word, I said. "I'm the signatory on the event agreement. It's my right to terminate under the terms. I've accepted the fees. It's the night before my wedding." "I hear you." Silence. For a moment, I could make out beneath her breath the invisible arithmetic of social expectation, the optics, the comments, the photographs that would be shown, and the ones that wouldn't. When she returned to the line, her voice had a pleading softness I had never heard. "Eleanor, please. Just for tomorrow. We'll discuss everything after, I promise." "I declined to host an event at which I was asked not to be present," I said. "That's not a discussion. That's a definition." She exhaled a small laugh that wasn't laughter. "Daniel wants to talk to you." I could hear the phone changing hands, his exhale close to the microphone. "Mom," he said, this is a lot." He fought for a calm tone and mostly found it. "Could you come back to the house? We can fix this." "I've already checked into my hotel," I said. "Any fixing you do will be yours." "People will be hungry," he said, as if hunger were a sealed argument. "They can eat, just not on my tab." The call ended with a ragged apology from him and a tight courtesy from her. I set the phone screen down on the table and watched the lobby fill with the anonymous afternoon, a flight crew with rolling cases, a family negotiating a stroller, a woman in a slate suit tapping a laptop like it owed her an answer. Somewhere between sips, I emailed Marisol the written notice, then forwarded Naomi's packet to a folder labeled Birch Street, because even the names of things can steady you. At 4:11 p.m., the phone again, this time the conservatory. "Ms. Hart," Marisol said carefully, "we've been contacted by a Ms. Caroline Moore, who identified herself as the mother of the bride. She asked to assume your contract and the costs." She's inquiring whether we can reinstate the reception if she pays. Is she able to do that under your policies, I asked. She could with your written consent because you are the contracting party, Marisol said. It would have to be immediate. I don't consent, I said. Please keep the cancellation in place. Understood, she said, and I could hear in her voice that she did. Evening came down in gauze. I ate in the hotel bar a salad that was mostly arrangement and a glass of wine that remembered grapes. The lobby TV cycled through news spools and sports. When my phone alarm chirped at 9, a reminder to water the pothos, back at the condo, a plant I had carried through 3 addresses and 1 life, I disabled it. At 9:37, a text from Daniel, "Can we talk? I'm coming by." I texted back the hotel name and room number. He didn't reply. He knocked at 10:05, and when I opened the door, he looked not ruined, not dramatic, just thin, with the small hunger of sleep lost to thinking. He wore a wrinkled white shirt and a tie loosened more by hands than by heat. "Hi," I said. He stepped in, eyes taking inventory bed chair, suitcase the framed photograph of Robert propped on the dresser. He put his hands in his pockets and removed them again. "Mom, this is not you." "Which version of me is that?" I asked. "The one who would never embarrass me like this." "I see," I said. "Close the door." He closed it and sat, uninvited, but not unwelcome, on the edge of the chair. Lila's crying. Her mother is furious. The conservatory is saying we don't have a reception. Do you know how that looks? "I do," I said. "It looks like the consequence of a decision you both made this morning." "We didn't make a decision," he said, offended by the grammar. "Lila said something she didn't mean, and you—" He stopped. "Look, I know things have been tense. I know she can be direct. But you escalated it." I poured water from the tiny bottle on the desk into the tiny glass and handed it to him. He didn't take it. "Daniel," I said, "in the past 3 years, I have paid for your insurance premiums twice, your car repairs, 3 times your utility arrears when the accounts were red-tagged, your groceries on dozens of occasions, and your vacation deposit when the cancellation fee would have cost you more. That is not a grievance list. It is a ledger. Only one side has numbers." He stared at the carpet where the pattern tried to look like a river and failed. "We were always going to pay you back." "You never said so." "We didn't want to make it transactional," he said. And this time I laughed, not because it was funny, but because the sentence was so perfectly upside down. "When you reduce a person to money, the only language they have left is transactional," I said. "I didn't want that. I tried very hard to be more than the card that comes out when the check arrives. Yesterday made it plain what I'm allowed to be in your house." "That's not fair," he said, softer. "You're twisting this into something ugly." "It is ugly," I said, "but I'm not twisting it." He stood, walked to the window, pulled the curtain edge back to look at the river lit up like a necklace someone might pawn. When he returned to the chair, he had the look he gets when he wants to ask a favor without calling it one. "Could you reverse the cancellation?" "Just the reception. We'll figure out the rest." "No." He inhaled, held it, let it out. "Is this because you feel like Lila took over your place in my life?" "No," I said. "It's because Lila told me not to attend the event I paid for, and you agreed. The rest is decor." His jaw tightened. He picked up the glass, took a sip, set it down. "All right," he said. "What do you want?" "I want you to remember what our arrangement actually is," I said. 2 summers ago at your request, and with Naomi's guidance, I advanced $87,000 toward the down payment on your house. We recorded it properly. I signed the mortgage with you. My name is on the deed. I own 35% of the house you live in." He blinked. "No, you don't." "Yes," I said, "I do." Lila would have had to sign something. She was supposed to acknowledge receipt of the letters documenting the structure, I said. She didn't return them. But acknowledgments are not constitutive. The note, the mortgage, and the deed are. They exist. They're recorded. Naomi sent me the copies this morning. He rubbed his temples like a man in a headache commercial. "You planned this." "If I had, I said we wouldn't be having this conversation in a room with a key that says do not disturb on one side and please service on the other." He didn't smile. He looked very young in the hotel's forgiving light. "So what?" he asked. "You're going to kick us out." "I'm going to exercise the rights that attach to ownership," I said. "Naomi is preparing a notice of intent to sell. You and Lila will have the right to buy out my interest at current valuation. If you can't, the law provides remedies for dividing an asset that cannot be physically divided." "You can't be serious." "I'm never more serious than when I speak to a lawyer." He walked back to the window as if the view could produce a new option. "We can't afford to buy you out," he said. "We're not—" He stopped before the word broke. "It's a lot of money." "It is," I said. "I had it because I worked for it and saved it and did not spend it on swans sculpted out of ice." His head came up, startled into amusement despite himself. "They were cranes," he said, and then he winced at having said anything at all. We were quiet. The room's clock clicked the minute. The bedspread had the pattern of leaves pressed under glass. I sat on the edge of the bed and held my hands together the way you do in church when there's nothing else to hold. The phone on the nightstand rang, an actual Ring landline, courtesy of hotels that refuse to believe the future is entirely in our pockets. I picked up. Ms. Hart, Marisol, again sweet with apology. I'm sorry to disturb you late. We have a small issue with the vendor releases. Your florist is asking for confirmation on tomorrow's change. Please forward me whatever they need, I said. I'll sign. Yes, ma'am, she said. Also, just to keep you informed, Ms. Moore did return and asked again about taking over the contract. She is persuasive. She is a mother, I said. Tell her the answer remains no. When I set the phone down, Daniel was watching me. Caroline went down there. You said no to her. He couldn't parse it. He had grown up among women who smoothed problems with checks and casseroles. She'll hate you. She doesn't know me, I said. She knows a silhouette you and Lila drew. He tracked the edges of the carpet with his shoe. I don't know how to explain this to people, he said. They'll think. Explain it accurately, I said. Say the contracting party withdrew. Say the event changed. Say whatever is true that requires the fewest syllables. He stared, then laughed once without humor. When did you get like this? Like what? Cold. I'm not cold, I said, and I wasn't. If anything, it felt like the first normal temperature after months of fever. He rubbed his face. She's in pieces, he said. Lila. She says you never liked her, that you were waiting to do something like this. I liked many things about her, I said. Her decisiveness, her discipline around aesthetics, her ability to name what she wants. Today she named it. I'm simply honoring the clarity. He sank back onto the chair as if his bones had changed weight. You're serious about the house? Yes. And the reception is gone? Yes. He looked at the door, at the bag in the corner, at the photograph of Robert catching light from the lamp. Can I sit for a minute, he asked. You can sit for as many minutes as you need, I said. We didn't speak for a while. A siren trailed itself thinly on the street below and faded. I could hear the faint percussive thump of a wedding band practicing in a ballroom 2 floors down. He put his elbows on his knees and clasped his hands like a boy waiting outside a principal's office. I messed up, he said at last, small and plain. I heard you agree with Lila in the kitchen, I said. You spoke as if I were a problem to be managed. That is not a mess. That is a position. You chose it. I didn't mean. You did, I said. It's all right that you meant it. It just means other things follow. He nodded, the slow nod of someone who has not yet named the other things. When he rose, he looked like he'd aged a year in the hour. What now, he asked, and I looked at him the way I look at any client's son in a workshop when he asked me to solve the assignment I designed. Now you go home, I said. Decide what you want your wedding day to be. Feed the people if you'd like. Say your vows. Don't say them. None of that is my business anymore. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Can I call you tomorrow, he asked. You can call, I said. He half smiled, concession accepted barely. At the door, he turned back, fingers on the handle. Mom. Yes. I'm sorry, he said, and this time the words carried weight. For the way I spoke to you. For forgetting what you've done. You remember what I've done when you need it, I said not unkindly. Try remembering it when you don't. When he left, the room regained its neutral posture. I put the Do Not Disturb tag on the knob and bolted the lock. The phone lay face down. When it buzzed, I let it do so without flipping it over. The list on the desk sat where I'd left it, 2 items crossed off in my neat slanted hand. I added one more line, confirm courier pickup with Naomi, and set the pen down. At 11:42 p.m. the cell rang again. Lila's number, I answered. Eleanor, she said, much quieter than before. I said something cruel. I shouldn't have. I was overwhelmed. I heard you, I said. She sniffed, controlled it. Can we at least compromise, keep the venue, but scale the menu? A dessert reception, coffee and music, people are expecting to celebrate. Ding. People can celebrate, I said. I will not host them. You keep saying host like it's a weapon. It's a word, I said. It describes an act. I'm withdrawing it. Daniel told me about the house, she blurted. He says you're on the deed. I don't understand how that's possible. This was supposed to be our start. I am on the deed, I said, because I made sure I would be. You don't trust me. I didn't know you, I said. That's different. She breathed in hard, then out. Caroline is furious, she said, and for the first time, there was not a sliver of performance in it, only a weary daughter caught between 2 women refusing to play a role. She says you were rude to her at the conservatory. I was not, I said. I simply didn't give her what she asked for. Silence again, and then replacing anger, a tired sincerity that made me see the woman under the planning app in the spreadsheet. Will you please come to the ceremony, she asked. Just the ceremony. Daniel wants you there. If I come, I said carefully, I'll sit in the back. I won't take a photograph. I won't speak. I'll leave after the vows. That's fine, she said, then added as if making a bargain with herself. Thank you. We ended the call. I lay back on the bed and watched the dark seam where the curtains almost met a hairline of the night city visible like blood under skin. The air unit cycled on and off, patient as a tide. I turned the lamp off and slept. When morning found the curtains weak places and threaded itself through, I dressed and went downstairs. The lobby was full of luggage and nervous laughter. At the espresso counter, a man in a tuxedo t-shirt ordered 6 cappuccinos as if coffee alone could stage a day. My phone buzzed Naomi, confirming the courier would pick up at 9. I signed the envelope at the desk and left it there, the weight of it ordinary. At noon, I took a cab to the chapel. I sat where I had said I would, in the last row on the aisle. The room smelled of eucalyptus and white roses, Caroline's taste probably, and the string players were good enough to make you believe you'd heard the songs for the first time. Guests turned and murmured and turned again. A woman in a hat complimented my shoes, and I thanked her. The ceremony began on time. I watched my son's shoulders square as he spoke the words he had been practicing under his breath while shaving for a week. I watched Lila's face arrange itself into something like serenity and hold. When the recessional ended, I did exactly as promised, stood, walked out, and kept walking into the small courtyard where the day had decided to be generous with light. My phone buzzed in my bag, unknown number again. I let it ring twice, then answered. Ms. Hart said, a familiar voice, formal now. Marisol from Riverside. The quartet is asking about their final invoice with the change. Also, a Ms. Moore wanted to know if she could at least pay for a toast. Send me whatever the musicians need, I said. And please tell Ms. Moore no. I ended the call and sat on a stone bench under an olive tree that was far too young for olives. People spilled past confetti, still in their hands, faces bright with the afterglow of a ritual they would recount later over meals they would now have to source. A pair of children in small suits chased each other, one carrying a ring box he was not supposed to run with. I looked up at the strip of sky and felt neither satisfaction nor regret, just the steadiness of a decision that matched its reasons. When I stood to leave, my shoes clicked on the flagstones with the unremarkable sound of a person walking to the curb. A sedan pulled up and I opened the door. The driver asked for the address. I gave him the hotel. We pulled into the street, the chapel shrinking in the rear view. I took out my phone, saw a new email from Naomi confirming that filings would be ready for service, and slid it back into my bag. The river flashed between buildings like a secret someone had decided not to keep. The hotel lobby had that Sunday hush peculiar to places built for movement, suitcases lined like chess pieces, the coffee kiosk steaming into a practiced rhythm, a wedding party drifting through in formal wear, as if in a scene they hadn't rehearsed enough. I took a seat by the window with a bowl of fruit and the folder Naomi had sent, the one with my name highlighted wherever it mattered. 35% promissory note deed, paper that would not flinch. Mrs. Hart, a woman, said the vowels of money softened by decades of small talk. I looked up to see a sleek bob the color of rain and a camel coat draped across an arm like a verdict. She seemed familiar in the non-specific way of club photographs and gala pages. Yes, I said. I'm Caroline Moore. She didn't offer her hand, which I respected. Lobby intimacy is best rationed. Lila's mother. I gestured to the chair across. She sat with the control of someone who has mastered posture as a social instrument and set her phone on the table, face down, a white flag. I went to the conservatory, she said, not accusatory, just factual. I offered to take over the contract. The manager told me you declined. I did. Her mouth pressed then unpressed. I disagreed with how my daughter spoke to you yesterday. She said, the words pulled taut by honesty. But I also feel responsible for the guests we invited. I understand, I said. I chose to cancel what I paid for. She looked straight at me, and I saw what Lila will look like in 25 years if she learns restraint. Do you ever find, she asked quietly, that love turns you into an annuity? Yes, I said. I'm correcting the terms. Something like relief flashed quick and private. I won't take sides in a fight I didn't witness, she said. I will say this, my daughter confuses hospitality with entitlement. I helped teach her that. Her father helped more. She folded her hands. If you want to be angry with anyone, be angry with the Tudors. I don't need anger, I said. I need records. Caroline's laugh was only half bitter. A pragmatic woman, my favorite kind. She reached into her bag and produced a card as thin as a blade. If you need me to rein in any of the vendors who will try to salvage their margins today, call. I seem to know all of them. I'll manage, I said. She stood. Ms. Hart. Eleanor, whatever happens with the house, please don't soften it on my account. I have been soft for Lila too long. She lifted her phone, glanced at it, and exhaled. She's hysterical. I am for once not. She slid the card across the table. Good afternoon. After she left the lobby, returned to its default tempo checkouts, maps a bellman collecting umbrellas near the door. I took the folder to my room and read the filings again, not because they had changed, but because repetition is its own form of steadiness. I slept early, or what counted as early in a city where evening isn't a people but a light. At 8:07 the next morning, my cell rang with a number that flagged as City of Riverton. I answered, already awake. Ms. Hart. The voice was professional without chill. "This is Detective Maya Rios from Adult Protective Services at Riverton PD. Do you have a moment?" "Yes. We received a report last night alleging potential financial exploitation and possible cognitive decline," she said, careful with each phrase. "Standard practice is to follow up. Would you be willing to come by the station this morning, or we can send an officer to your location?" I felt the exact point where irritation could have bloomed if I fed it. I did not. "I'll come to you," I said. "Give me an hour." The precinct had cinder block walls painted the color of patience. Detective Rios met me in a small interview room where the chairs were 1 degree too firm and the fluorescent lighting honest. She wore a navy blazer and kept her pen capped until it was time not to. "Ms. Hart," she said when we'd settled. "I'll be brief. We follow up on all reports. They're sometimes vindictive, sometimes concerned, sometimes both. Tell me in your words what's going on." "In my words," I said, and gave them the kitchen, the request for absence, the contract I canceled, Naomi's filings, the percentage printed in black and filed, where counties keep their indisputable truths. I slid the folder across. She read with the particular attention of public servants whose power comes not from opinion, but from process. "You're on the deed," she said. "I am. And you're a co-borrower." "Yes. And these transfers to your son and his fiancée." She tapped a page where my tidy notations made the amounts legible even to emotion. "Insurance premiums, utilities, repairs, food." 3 years, I said. "Documented." "Do you manage your own finances?" "I do." "Any diagnosis, medication, incidents?" "No," I said. "Grief once. I've metabolized it." She nodded, not from sympathy, but acknowledgement. "We'll note the report is unfounded," she said. "Do you want us to document any harassment?" "I want you to document that I came when you called and presented records," I said. "The rest is family." She capped the pen. "All right. If you receive further communications you find threatening, call. Otherwise, I suspect your next steps are civil, not criminal." "They are," I said. Outside, the sun reflected itself off the hood of my cab with the shamelessness of noon. My phone rang as soon as I climbed in. "Daniel." "Mom," he said without prelude. "The police just called. Lila said she told them someone reported." He stopped. "Did you talk to them?" "I did," I said. "What did you tell them?" "The truth," I said, which is not an accusation. He was silent. City noise filled the line, a jackhammer gnawing the street, a vendor yelling prices so loud the numbers broke. "Can we meet?" he asked at last. "You, me, Lila. With your lawyer if you want. We need to understand what this is." "Naomi's office," I said. "This afternoon." Naomi meets clients the way surgeons meet patients, kind, precise, uninvested in gossip. Her conference room overlooked the river, and the table had the gloss of lacquer you're not tempted to touch. Daniel and Lila arrived 10 minutes late, both overdressed in apology. Lila's makeup had done its best with the night she'd had and was nearly winning. Daniel held his jaw like it ached. Naomi shook hands. "Mr. Hart, Ms. Moore, please sit." She placed 3 copies of the packet on the table and uncapped a pen that had the heft of an object built to sign a treaty. "We're going to proceed fact first," she said. "No characterization, no recriminations, just what is recorded." She turned a page so the heading faced them. 2 years ago, Ms. Hart advanced $87,000 toward the down payment on your property at 14 Morningside Lane. We documented the advance as a loan secured by a deed of trust against the property. Ms. Hart also signed your mortgage as a co-borrower. The deed lists 3 owners, Daniel Hart, Lila Moore, and Eleanor Hart. Ms. Hart's recorded interest is 35% consistent with the structure at closing. Another page. I sent 3 acknowledgement letters to Ms. Moore for signature. They were not returned. That omission does not affect the recorded instruments. Lila's chin tipped up a degree, an old habit against shame. "I didn't understand what those were," she said. "Understanding is useful," Naomi said, almost gentle. "It is not constitutive. The deed exists regardless." Daniel looked from Naomi to me and back. "We thought Mom gave us the down payment." Naomi didn't correct him. She adjusted the pen parallel to the page and said, "We're here to discuss options. A co-owned property where the owners no longer agree can be handled in a few ways." "Which are?" Daniel asked, his voice wrapped in cotton. "First, Naomi said you may buy Ms. Hart's 35% interest at current market value. Second, if you cannot or will not, Ms. Hart can initiate a partition action and the court will order a sale with net proceeds divided by recorded interests." Lila blinked at the word court like a child surprised to find out consequences had a building. "Sell our house." "It is a house," Naomi said without sympathy, "and it is an asset. When an asset cannot be filed like a painting, it is sold. We can't afford to buy her out." Daniel said straight to me now, "We're not." He stopped. "We can't." "Then we prepare for sale," Naomi said before I could. "A sale is not punitive, it is administrative." Lila pressed her fingers to the table until the nail beds paled. "This is my home," she said quietly. "I made it livable. I chose the fixtures. I planned. She closed her mouth on the word. She had learned at least here to stop listing futures as if they counted as payments. Naomi slid a legal pad between us and drew a neat line down the center with the pen. We are not here to inventory sentiment, she said. We are here to resolve title conflict, Ms. Hart. I looked at my son, whose face was his father's if you ignored the ways luck had rearranged it. I want this handled quickly, I said. I don't want to live in prolonged friction. Define quickly, Naomi said. 30 days for them to make an election, I said. At the end of that period, we move on the chosen path. Naomi wrote 30 days at the top of the pad and made a box around it that would please a clerk. You'll need to start your financing inquiry, Mr. Hart, she said. If there is any chance of a buyout, do not wait. Daniel nodded. He looked at Lila. She looked away, then back. We'll try, he said. Trying, Naomi said, is an attitude. Banks require documents. She tapped the packet. Your joint credit will matter. Your income to debt will matter. Ms. Hart's position will not. Lila turned to me, and the anger that had flared so readily all week was, if not gone, tempered. Eleanor, she said, and it was the first time she'd used my name without an angle. Were you always going to do this? No, I said. I did this because of what was said and what was agreed to yesterday. She swallowed. I was cruel. You were clear, I said. Clarity has cost. Naomi capped her pen. I'll draft a memorandum of understanding that sets out the options and the timeline, she said. You'll all sign. Then we move. Lila's eyes shined but held. Caroline offered us money, she said low. She wanted to save face after the reception. Daniel said we should take it. I told her no. Daniel turned his head toward her. You told her no. He sounded like a man surprised to find steel where he expected silk. Lila's mouth bent. I am not proud of how I behaved. I can at least be the one to stop the bleeding that looks generous. Something in my chest eased a knot, loosening without fanfare. Naomi slid the signature pages toward us. We signed where indicated. She notarized with the efficiency of someone who enjoys the stamp as much as the law. She handed Daniel and Lila their copies and kept the original in a folder whose color can only be purchased wholesale. Outside, the river pushed past the pilings as if they were decorative. Daniel lingered in the hall while Lila went to the restroom to collect herself. 30 days, he said, as if trying on the weight of the number. Yes, I said. He put his hand on the back of his neck, a boyish gesture he hadn't lost. I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to say no if no is the answer. All right. If we can't get the financing, he said, will you think about... He stopped, reset. Would you consider a reduced figure, a number we might be able to reach without a bank? I will consider what is documented in the memorandum, I said. He nodded acceptance or exhaustion or both. Lila returned eyes clear lipstick reapplied to resemble resolve. Thank you for meeting us, she said to Naomi, and to me. Thank you for not refusing to see us. Seeing is not agreeing, I said, but it is seeing. We took the elevator down together and separated at the doors without ceremony. On the sidewalk, traffic braided itself into the afternoon. Across the street, a pawn shop did a brisk business in instruments and regrets. I stood under the shade of Naomi's awning until a rideshare pulled up, then got in and gave the driver the hotel's address. My phone buzzed before we reached the corner, an email from Naomi with the signed memorandum attached and a subject line that read simply timeline. Naomi's email landed with the quiet certainty of a stamped envelope subject line. Timeline, the memorandum attached signatures where they belonged. I read it once in the cab and again at the hotel desk while the clerk slid me my key in a paper sleeve. 30 days, 2 options, no adjectives. On the third evening, Caroline Moore appeared at the hotel bar in a navy wrap dress that swallowed light. She didn't bother with pleasantries. I told Lila I won't co-sign anything she said, settling onto the adjacent stool. She asked. I said no. She stirred a club soda as if it might opine. I also told her I won't be wiring cash to fix optics. If there is a change in that position, assume I've taken leave of my senses. I'll assume you're consistent, I said. Caroline took a sip and set the glass down with surgical precision. She sounded shocked that the word no could travel that far in our family. A pause. If you're gathering villains for a playbill, save me a slot. I trained her to expect yeah. I'm not staging a play, I said. I'm closing a file. She half smiled, the first expression that hinted she might once have been funny at dinner parties. Good. She slid a folded note across the bar. For you, not them. My number. If vendors start threatening to recover costs, send them to me. I know where their margins hide. Then she left her perfume, something botanical and expensive, hanging behind like a well-written clause. On day 5, Daniel texted, we think we can get a home equity line for $60K. Can we meet? We met at Naomi's because couches invite confessions and conference tables enforce nouns. They came in with a thick envelope of statements and the brittle composure of the newly sober. Naomi arranged everything into a grid bank, balances, credit card totals, The mortgage amortization table no one reads until the math starts speaking in red. Restaurants? Naomi asked, pen hovering. $400 a month, Daniel admitted. Lila straightened. We work long hours. You don't, I said, and immediately wished I'd waited half a beat before the correction. Lila's chin lifted a reflex against heat. I meant Daniel works long hours. Gym membership, Naomi continued. 149, used twice last month. Streaming, 210. Daniel said, rubbing his temple. I don't even know how many accounts. Minimums on credit cards, 800. Naomi's pen moved. Totals assembled. The deficit was not dramatic. It was steady, the kind that shapes a life with the same patience water uses on stone. We can use the equity line to clear the cards, Daniel said. Then we'd have room to pay you monthly on the remainder. At what interest, I asked, and with what collateral? He looked at Lila. She held his gaze for 2 seconds, then dropped it to the ledger. We were asking for trust, she said, quiet. We haven't earned it. We went silent long enough for the river under Naomi's windows to show off. The room smelled faintly of lemon and ink. All right, I said. Here's a number and a structure. Naomi looked up, surprised only in the way accountants are when emotion produces a spreadsheet. I kept my eyes on Daniel. You can buy out my interest for $75,000, I said. Not market value, a reduction, but it carries conditions. Lila exhaled, then held still. First, I said Lila secures employment within 60 days and keeps it for 24 months. Second, you sell 1 car and apply all proceeds to principal debt. Third, you adopt a budget that reflects your income, no restaurant spending, no new debt, no subscriptions you don't use for 2 years. Daniel nodded, fast, too fast. Naomi held up a hand. Monitoring, she said. Monthly financial reviews with Naomi, I said. Bank statements, credit reports, proof of income. If you miss a review or violate terms, the discount evaporates and the full fair market figures due immediately, or we move to sale. Naomi's pen returned to work, making the language behave. Daniel read the draft twice, lips moving. Lila read it once straight through, then again stopping on the verbs. This feels like punishment, she said. It's a purchase, I said. Purchases come with terms. She looked at me, really looked, with neither performance nor plea. I can do the job part, she said. I don't know what yet, but there will be one. Naomi printed signature pages, the notary stamp pressed down with a satisfying click, a seal blooming under the pressure like a night flower. Hands shook, copies were distributed. The room lost some of its tension the way a held breath becomes air. 6 months later, the new apartment still surprised me when I opened the door. 2 bedrooms in a building that called itself a residency, with a pool as blue as brochure promises, and a path along the river where retirees conferred on birds as if they were committee members. My books were where I wanted them. Robert's photograph sat on the dresser beside a ceramic dish for my keys. On Thursdays, a reading group met 2 floors down to argue gently about sentences. On a Tuesday, my phone rang between pages. Eleanor. Her voice had the textured brightness of someone who'd been speaking to strangers all day and only now turned it down. I'm calling from the dental practice. They asked me to move up to office coordinator, a breath that contained pride without brag. I've been useful. I'm glad to hear it, I said. We bring our lunches, she said, almost laughing at herself. We share recipes. Daniel says my pasta isn't as good as yours, and he's probably right. But we're not ordering in. How's the rest of it, I asked. Manageable, she said. We sold the SUV, walked to the train for a week, and decided the calves go away after the second week. A pause. We make our reviews with Naomi on time. Naomi doesn't accept late, I said. I've noticed. Silence, then not awkward, just full. Thank you, she said quietly, for giving us a number we could reach without lying to anyone. It's in the memorandum, I said, and she understood that what I meant was, I accept her thanks without changing anything. Would you come to dinner, she asked. A small one. No speeches. We can pick a night Naomi doesn't need to see statements if that makes it easier. Not dinner, I said. Lunch, a public place. Choose somewhere with terrible lighting and good soup. She laughed, a real one, and I could hear in it the outline of a woman I hadn't met when all this started. We chose a day. She promised to bring bread she didn't bake and not to apologize for it. After we hung up, I stood at the window and watched a rower carve the river into obedient lines. A text blinked from Caroline. She told me she called you. I'm trying not to be proud in a way that makes her roll her eyes. I typed back, be proud anyway, quietly. Caroline sent a dot, then another, then nothing. The restraint in answer. In the evening, I walked the path until the water darkened and the lamps came on one by one, each pool of light the size of a reasonable choice. A neighbor I'd met in book club, Frank, a widower with an enviable tomato plant, waved from a bench. We traded sandwich halves and observations about the egret that had taken to visiting the far bank. My phone stayed face down in my bag. When I picked it up at home, Naomi's monthly reminder was waiting, review Friday at 4. I tapped confirmed and set the device beside Robert's photo. The apartment was very quiet then. Not empty, just full of ordinary sounds I hadn't heard in a while. The hum of the fridge, the tick of the hall clock, my own breath unspooling at an unhurried rate. I poured water, set the glass on the nightstand, and switched off the lamp. The dark settled evenly like a room receiving its own weight. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring more journeys and lessons together.